First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here today, for taking time out of your week, out of your daily schedule, maybe even time off work. Because this, as we know, is the most important issue facing our times right now and our children. Thank you for being a voice for those who cannot speak. Thank you for being a voice for justice in a world that is corrupt. For our children who rely on us to protect them. And for all of those out there in the world that don't even know they need a voice. They don't even realize how important it is what we do every day. But one day they will. Because one day the world will be so dark and people so unhealthy that nobody will be able to turn a blind eye. And everyone will be affected. But we're here today to try to stop that and to try to protect our children and children throughout the world from what's going on. And I thank you for showing up today, because that's what we need in this moment. We need people to show up today and every day. And I know it's not easy. I had a week-long vacation planned in Canada, and I cut it short to be here today. And now look at the resistance we're still up against. It doesn't only come from the outside. My son is really disappointed when I told him we were leaving early. And it took 12 hours for me to get here. And we arrived at 2 a.m. last night. And as I was carrying my 60-pound son from the car, who fell asleep on the ride here, he looks up at me and says something that I say to him all the time. He looks up and says, "I don't know how you have so much energy, Mama." I don't have energy. I create it. Just like every one of you, we create it through our passion for justice, through our passion for our children, for our passion to protect humanity from a colossal campaign of greed by the pharmaceutical industry. It's a greed that I saw firsthand when I worked for Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and one of the largest vaccine makers. I sold a drug that was killing people. Most of you know my story. The company knew it. It's been proven in court. Yet they didn't tell us, and they didn't tell those millions of people that were taking the drug. The ones having heart attacks, the tens of thousands that died, maybe 500,000 according to some statistics. It was an eye-opening moment for me. And I walked away from a very lucrative career because I couldn't ignore the glaring fact that the pharmaceutical industry puts profit before people. And now they're doing it at the expense of people's lives. Not only adults who actually have conscious choice, but children. They're putting profits before our children's lives and health. So we stand here today saying that's enough. And I stood here 2 years ago fighting the vaccine law, the mandatory vaccine law, most of you know, SB 277. My son was in the first kindergarten class. My vaccine-free son, it's right over there, was in the first kindergarten class affected by SB 277. So we stood at this Capitol, 5, 6 hearings in a row, for months at a time, flooding the halls with hundreds of parents, rallies like this times 10, fighting political corruption and pharmaceutical industry influence on the lawmakers in this building. SB 277 was a clear violation of religious rights and our pursuit of health and happiness. A clear constitutional right abandoning law. California lawmakers sold our children to the highest bidder. And that, these days, is the pharmaceutical industry. Not much has changed, unfortunately. Now we stand here today because the federal government has done the same. The Department of Health and Human Services has not done its job protecting our children. They have not filed the safety reports required by the 1986 Vaccine Compensation Act. But let's get real. The HHS hasn't done a safety report on vaccines because they forgot, right? They haven't done the safety reporting required because they know that vaccines are not safe. And they know that vaccines will never be. Because to elicit an antibody response, you have to have a toxin in that needle. And when it gets injected, it bypasses our body's natural defenses. Vaccines are a tool of the pharmaceutical industry to create health issues and the chronic illness that we see in 54% of children nowadays. Vaccines are how they fund their trillion-dollar Goliath of greed. It's how they create these issues that then need treatment with pharmaceutical drugs. This is their moneymaker. Not only the $60 billion they make every year, but the trillion they make pushing the drugs to help these health issues that vaccines created in the first place. So their campaign to keep us all sick, and don't be fooled, right? Pharma doesn't make any money off healthy people, okay? I hope nobody here today thinks that still. Their campaign to keep us all sick has really done its job. Half of all children have a chronic health issue. This wasn't the case when I was in school. I don't know about you. We didn't have to have EpiPens in every classroom. We didn't have a child with seizures regularly in every classroom. Food allergies, anaphylactic food allergies, none of that was happening in my peanut butter and jelly era that I went to school in. Cancer was not a disease of children. That was a disease of elderly after a lifetime of toxic exposure wore down bodies. Now it's the leading cause of disease death in children. What is going on? What is going on? So thank you, everyone, for being here today to try to put a stop to this. So cancer being the leading cause of disease death in children now, is that a coincidence? If you know the ingredients of vaccines, you know that it's not. Formaldehyde is used as a stabilizer and preservative in vaccines. It's known to be carcinogenic, to cause cancer in humans and animals. Don't put it in your wood floors. Don't put it in your children's toys. Even your nail polish now comes formaldehyde-free. But it's magically safe when it's put into a needle because someone in a white coat tells you it is. And now, cancer skyrocketed in children. It's not a coincidence, and we can no longer turn a blind eye to what's going on. The U.S. has some of the sickest kids in the world, despite spending more per capita on healthcare. We spend more per capita on healthcare than any other country in the world, by a lot. It is not a lack of healthcare. It's too much. Too much toxic drugs, too much toxic vaccines. And our children cannot handle the onslaught of pharmaceutical greed that's driving the vaccine campaign. The U.S. gives more childhood vaccines than any other developed country. We should have the healthiest children if vaccines do their job, right? Why are our kids so sick? So dependent on the pharmaceutical industry that creates those vaccines in the first place. It is a model of sickness that they're trying to capture us into. In fact, U.S. babies get 36 vaccines before their first birthday. We have the highest infant death rate in the developed world, much higher than other countries. In fact, we have the highest first-day death rate, and we're one of the only countries that gives the hepatitis B vaccine and the vitamin K shot, which has similar preservatives and additives, to our babies on their first day of life, even if they're premature. The science is there saying that this is not safe. But lawmakers aren't listening to that. They're listening to the pharma-funded science and the pharma lobbyists that roam the halls every day and take them out to lunch. So if that's just a coincidence, because I hear that all the time, right? Then why does Mississippi have the highest infant death rate in the country, and they also have the highest vaccinated population? It is no longer a coincidence we can ignore. So again, our babies should be healthy, right? With all of these vaccines, except the vaccines are creating illness and not preventing it. And that's the real story, and why we're not allowed to question it, and why we're so viciously attacked when we do. Because vaccines create customers for the pharmaceutical industry. Health issues like allergies, asthma, type 1 diabetes, MS, thyroid issues, autoimmune disease, gut issues, paralysis, even cancer and death. These are all listed as side effects of vaccines that have been reported. And these are not reported just by families and people that this has happened to. Most of those reports are reported by healthcare professionals. But I'm going to challenge that word healthcare, because if I want you to leave with something today, I want you to no longer use the word healthcare, because we don't have healthcare in this country. We have sick care. We have a system created to make us and keep us sick for profit. So there is no health care in the U.S. There is universal sick care. And it's our job to step out of that and to protect our children from that, the pharmaceutical greed, the political greed, all of that. Vaccines have even been linked to mental disorders. One of the largest industries in the medical field is antidepressants and anxiety. We've heard a lot about it. A Yale study linked vaccines to mental disorders like anxiety. Can you imagine how much more money is made by pharmaceutical companies if you just sit down, shut up, and take your needle? It is $1 trillion business. So thank you for being here today to fight that with me. And Dell mentioned it earlier. They love to throw around the word anti-science, right? I have a background in biochemistry. That's how I worked for the pharmaceutical industry. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors around the world speaking out. Healthcare professionals, nurses. But those aren't the ones you're going to see on the media, because the media is bought. But clearly, we have the science behind us. I have 1,000 studies, over 1,000, on the Learn the Risk website, showing the health damage linked to vaccines from all around the world, from well-known researchers, published, peer-reviewed. The science is on our side. But clearly, we have to teach lawmakers and the media and everyone else what real science looks like. Because science these days that's published in medical journals, half of it is false, according to Richard Horton, the current managing editor of The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. It's not just me saying this. It's not just Dell saying this. People inside the industry are saying this. We're just messengers. So I'm not sure about you, but I'm anti-pseudoscience. I'm anti-pharma marketing that they put a scientist's name on and hand him $1 million check behind the door. We have the science, and we show it. Now, it's up to us to get people to listen to it and to see it. Because these lawmakers, they don't care about science. They care about their paychecks. They care about those pharma dinners and perks. They are funded in part by pharmaceutical companies that want to take away our right to choose what goes into our body. A fundamental right. A fundamental right that should be protected by our Constitution. And after they cash in at the expense of our health and our children's health, where are they? Are they standing by that child's bedside at night, holding them when they have a seizure? Are they carrying your teenage daughter to the toilet when the HPV vaccine paralyzes them? Will they be there to feed your mother after the stroke caused by the high-dose flu vaccine? Will they foot the bill for 24-hour care after a vaccine causes irreversible brain damage, labeled as severe autism? Are they going to be at the funeral for baby Zara and all those other babies that couldn't take the onslaught of toxic ingredients in the vaccines and passed away within days and hours of receiving the vaccines? They will not be there because they're taught to deflect responsibility. Their $1 million house, their high-powered job, that all depends on it. So it's up to us parents to pick up the pieces when the vaccines go wrong and they damage our healthy children. And it's up to us to make sure everyone in this building behind me and everyone out there on the street knows exactly what vaccines are meant to do. And that is not prevent illness. They're there to prevent health, because there is no money made in healthy people like my son. So we stand here today asking every lawmaker in this building to do the right thing, to do their job, to stop pushing a pharmaceutical industry agenda and putting people and children of California and of the whole entire U.S. We need to be first. They are voted in to protect us. And we won't stop until they do. And if we've learned anything from all the hate and all the attacks in the media, all the sabotage, even in our own movement, just for simply questioning a product made by the pharmaceutical industry, an industry well known to harm people for profit. I saw it firsthand. If we learn anything from those vicious attacks, we can take this away. As Ghandi once said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And the truth will always win. Thank you.